afternoon, everybody. This is the November 5th. It's 3:07 p.m. and this is the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority. This is our board meeting. Today we have some presentations. I also want to make note that today there is no border station meeting, so we'll just proceed quickly into our Port Authority meeting, Wade, and I'll turn it over to you. Any letters of communication?
Mr. Chairman, there is one communication of note in the packet. We get a thank you letter from Ogdensburg School District regarding the use of the trails. In addition, there's a draft report for the executive summary and findings on the bridge that I'll draw your attention to. The consultant will be back, or will be here, I should say, at the December or January meeting to do the formal presentation to the board, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that. And that concludes the regular communications.
You want to give us a little briefing what the letter was about the trails, or what happened there?
Yes.
So the public can understand a little bit?
Certainly. Bear with me here just a moment. No, it's in here somewhere. Here we go. It's from Ogdensburg City School District, dated October 18th. On behalf of the city's school district, OFA Interscholastic Athletic Department, boys and girls cross-country programs, and the respective coaches, I'd like to take this opportunity to express our deepest and most heartfelt thanks and appreciation to you for your extremely gracious loan of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority grounds to host our boys and girls modified and varsity home cross-country meets while the Kennedy Elementary School site on which the cross-country course is located was under construction during the 2012-2013 fall sports season. Without the benevolence of this organization and the willingness of your fine people to be so flexible and accommodating, the inconvenience we all face due to our home site being renovated would have been considerably greater and much more challenging. We're extremely fortunate that such a well-respected community organization supported the OFA Interscholastic Athletic programs, most notably the boys and girls cross-country teams during this transition period. The kindness and generosity displayed helped provide the highest standard of quality, benefiting and promoting the healthy, competitive nature of our nation's future leaders. Best wishes and heartfelt thanks, sincerely, Anthony E. Bajork, Athletic Director, Ogdensburg City School District.
That was very important. I appreciate you reading that, because that's
Certainly.
We do a lot of community service work that's kind of taken for granted away, and it's nice to have a letter that's appreciate the type of things that we do. So thanks, Wade, for that.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, note in the board packet on the left-hand side, there's a list of committee assignments as proposed.
We have a approval of board minutes for meeting September 26, 2012, and October 3rd, 2012.
I move to approve.
A motion approved. Mr. Barlow? Yes?
Yes, I said.
He does, yes, he says. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have any comments or presentations? We do. So we have Kate here. So why don't we, I'm going to let you do the introductions. And
Certainly, we're very fortunate to have about a 20-minute presentation today, inclusive of questions, made by Andrew Bunny and Jacqueline Donahue from our friends at Cape Air. Folks, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Wade. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for putting Cape Air on the agenda. It's truly a privilege to represent the 1,000 employee owners of Cape Air here at the meeting, just to touch base with where we are as a company, as your partners in air service, but also we've got some great news about ridership at the airport, and we're delighted to be able to share that with you. It's also fun because we're not here to ask you for anything. But this is just a nice chance to touch base and give you a progress update with some really material things to talk about. My name is Andrew Bonney. I'm Vice President of Planning for Cape Air. I'm here with
Jacqueline Donahue. I'm the Northeast Marketing Manager.
And Stacy. Can you introduce yourself too?
Hi, I'm Stacy Gay. I'm the Messina Manager at Cape Air Messina.
Our Ogdensburg Manager, Patrick Edwards, is in the National Guard and was activated for Sandy. So he's down toward Manhattan right now and not able to be here. So Stacy's our other leader in this region is here to pinch hit. I will defer to Stacy for any operational type questions that may come up. Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I
Yep,
give
I'll
a
do it.
presentation?
Wait.
I don't want to blind you, sir. So I did want to spend a moment just talking about Cape Air and where we are as a company, as your partners in air service, and then we'll specifically talk about the Ogdensburg numbers and where we are right here globally. In 2012, we're on pace for just north of $100 million in revenue, which makes us a very small airline by US standards, but a really great fit for small communities because this is what we do. We serve 37 small airports, very similar to the Ogdensburg airport. That's our bread and butter. I used to work at United Airlines. I was in the planning department there and I sweated the 747s and the 777s. I love working with Cape Air and our 9-seat airplanes because I can come into a meeting like this with people who really know and love their community. And we can talk about issues and we can solve issues together. So I look forward to your input as this presentation goes on. We're financially stable. Our business model works, and there's not too many airlines that can say that. We've made money for the last 5 years. We don't make a lot of money, but we consistently make just a little bit of money. And, I think that is going to be germane to this conversation because what we're doing, particularly here, is working. We scale well now. We've got 70 Cessna 402s, 3 of which we just purchased and will be online shortly. That's the original Cape Air fleet. We started in 1989 as a very, very small company with just a handful of people. That's our original route, just between Boston and Providence County. That's what our Northeast network looks like now. It's really grown. We're now all the way across the Northeast. We've got an operation in St. Louis, in Florida, out in Micronesia. Anybody been in the Navy or Air Force and been out to Guam? That's why most people go out there. We go out there to fly airplanes. But about 8,000 miles away, we've got 2 large turboprop airplanes out there. So we do have experience running large airplanes. 37 cities total, 70 Cessna 402s. There are some material enhancements that we're working on in our company going forward. Some of which are just on the drawing boards, others of which we've implemented. We'll talk about those now. We are very mindful of fleet replacement for the 9th passenger model. The airplanes that we're flying are no longer in production, so we can't just go order more, which we'd like to continue to grow our business. Can't do it. Nobody's making suitable airplanes for what we're doing right now. So we have partnered with Tecnam, an Italian company, to effectively custom design an airplane right to our specifications. And we're keeping communities like Ogdensburg in mind when we are doing this design work. So we have a technical design agreement with them now, and we look forward to turning this into a commercial agreement relatively shortly. It's also probably worth noting that there are no new build airplanes in the 15, 19, or 30 seat category available worldwide. Nobody's making them. So we, from time to time, get asked about, okay, well, when are you going to buy bigger airplanes? We don't plan to do that because there is no airplane that you can buy. There are older airframes available, most of which ceased production in 2002, shortly after 9/11. So that all those airframes are getting older day by day, and it's becoming a more challenged fleet. Someday someone's going to build one, and then we can look at it with others. Our niche anyway is the 9-seat market, so we're really creating our own replacement airplane. But that is a really important thing to note about fleet. The smallest airplane in serial production today is 46 seats. It's the ATR-42, and we've got 2 of them. On the technology side, we've partnered with a small IT company you may have heard of called Google to be their launch customer in the airline space. So all of our flights now are run on the Google airline platform. We're the launch customer with them. It's worked really well. It's gotten us off of Sabre, which has been sort of the legacy company, but they weren't as flexible as we needed for what we do going forward. So we're partnered with a leader in the 21st century. We also take environmental responsibility very seriously. We've finished an installation of solar panels, PV solar, on top of our 2nd hangar in Hyannis. And so on an annual basis, we take no juice off the net. We produce it ourselves. And with that, I might pass it over to my colleague to talk about where we are with distribution.
So Cape Air, we are partners with JetBlue, as you can see here. From Ogdensburg, A passenger can book on JetBlue.com from Ogdensburg to most of the JetBlue destinations out of Boston. It offers seamless travel, one ticket, one baggage transfer out of Ogdensburg. If you want to slip to the next slide, we also are partners with United as well and other major carriers. Ogdensburg is visible on Expedia and Travelocity as well. So basically what this means to Ogdensburg is that we are making Ogdensburg available to the world and making the world see Ogdensburg as well. So it's a great way to bring passengers back and forth between the community. And overall, we have been in Ogdensburg for about 4 years now, and we started in 2008. We have flown thousands of passengers since, and we've seen an increase year over year, which is wonderful news. As many of you know, we do serve Ogdensburg with 3 daily flights through Albany and then onward to Boston. And our fares start at $52, so the price is right there. And if you want to flip to the next slide. So here's just the ridership graph since our takeover at the airport. As I mentioned, you can see there is a year-over-year increase in enplanements, and Andrew's actually going to give you a little overview later in the presentation historically, before Cape Air was even here, to show how wonderful these numbers truly are in comparison to the historical data that we gathered for you today.
I think the really exciting thing is, on the right-hand side of that graph, it's still going up. We're not done growing yet. We've been on a really aggressive growth curve here. It's been really just phenomenal in the program.
Andrew, what's the maximum number? I mean, obviously you got so many flights and so many passengers. What's the maximum number that you can come with?
So the DOT has authorized 3 round trips per day because I don't want to bore you with the history of this, but the EAS determination when they started the program in 1978 was that Ogdensburg would have 20 seats per day. I mean, this is actually, this is a copy of the original EAS determination right here. You can see Ogdensburg's line is right here, 20 seats per day, right there. So they typically round up, and this is not, over time it's become a little bit flexible, but 3 flights a day at 9 seats gives you 27 seats departing per day. And that's about what the spend in the program is designed for. So that's how they get there. So at 20, the short answer to your question is like something like 9,700 departing seats per year. So if we flew 100% completion rate and 100% load factor, you'd be just under 10,000.
And you know, 10,000 is a magic number for us.
Of course, yep.
And it's like, that's an issue that we have, is like, how can we get to that number?
Sure. You know, the interesting thing is we're about to hit 10,000 for the first time in 2 EAS communities that we serve with 9-seat airplanes. Quincy, Illinois, and Marion, Illinois. We're going to get there just with high-frequency 9-seat service. You can't beat our fares. You just can't. And that's getting a lot of people flying for the first time out of this airport. And it's taking Canadians down as well. What were the Canadian numbers?
We had 91 passengers as an unofficial count last month out of Ogdensburg who were use a Canadian passport when checking in. So it's about 20-25% of our ridership for last month.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we continue to see that grow. Jacqueline's put some great marketing up in the Canada market, inviting people, just awareness, getting people to know about the airport here. Wade gave us some exciting news about signage going out front here, I guess tomorrow. Wade, is that right?
Scheduled to be installed tomorrow.
That's
the digital sign that's going up. And one of the things on the sign is advertising the airport has flights to Albany and Boston. So that sign should be operational tomorrow.
Another exciting fact, is with the Canadian traffic, as I mentioned at the North Country Airport Alliance meeting, we've seen over 40,000 hits on our website from various ads that we're running in the Canadian market, which is a huge amount of traffic for a link from one of the Canadian websites. So definitely good spots that we have going up there right now.
In preparation for coming up here, I asked DOT to give us their historic data on the airport, going back to deregulation. And that's presented in the bar chart here. You can see that going all the way back to 1975, the 2012 number, and obviously it's still an estimate because we haven't flown through the rest of the year yet, but we're on pace to be over 5,000 enplanements here in Ogdensburg, which is very close to the all-time record. You will notice where the dashed line is, there's a gap in the data because the data is confounded by the through passengers from Messina, so there's not great data in there to compare apples to apples. But for those of you with recent history here, you will know that we're carrying more people through the airport now than for years before we got up here in 2008. What I didn't know about was what the data looked back to the 1970s. So we're very proud of this year we're having so far, the great work that Stacy and her colleagues are doing up here to keep the ridership going. And given the growth rate, I'm so excited to see what 2013 will look like. Advanced bookings continue to be up 20 to 30% on a year-over-year basis. So let's talk about what works, because I think that's really germane to the future for you guys, not just looking back. We know that low fares really drive people to buy. That's why we're taking Canadians out of the Ottawa market. It's fair. Our net average fare in Ogdensburg year to date is just under $52, as Jacqueline mentioned earlier. That's the net average that we get. That's a really great deal to get somebody into the National Air Transportation System. We're a mature airline, so we know how to be safe. It's built into what we do. We've flown millions of passengers now. We fly about 130,000 flights per year. We've really got our operation down. You don't have to worry about sort of learning curve type issues with Cape Air. We've been doing this for a long time. We've got it kind of figured out. With small airplanes, the downside is it's a small airplane, to be sure. The upside is with your 20-seat cap from the EAS determination, you're actually still allowed 3 departures. So you can have a morning, a midday, and an evening departure. It's allowed Jacqueline and me to come up here just for business for the day, because you've got that really convenient schedule. We would not be able to do this if there were fewer frequencies. We've got all the interline ability. The new Google product works. As Jacqueline showed you, our deals with JetBlue and United put Ogdensburg on both those websites, as well as Expedia Orbitz and Travelocity. And then you've got 2 hubs served, both Albany and Boston, which is, as you've seen in the numbers, made a huge difference. Yes, sir.
So if the passenger growth continues and EAS continues in its present form, would we have an opportunity for more passengers than 20?
Absolutely. What we've done in some of our other EAS communities is grow outside the program, and that's it's not necessarily a mandate from DOT, but they've made it really clear they like to see us do that. So in Rutland, Vermont, where we're authorized 3 round trips just like here, this summer, all summer, we had 4. In Saranac Lake, we're authorized 3 for the last couple of years, and in the summers we've run 4. This year, we ran 5. We continue to grow outside the program.
Does EAS take care of that extra flight, or is that on you?
No, sir, it's 100% on us. Well, which is to say, when you start selling this many tickets, it's actually on the customer, I guess. Is the other way to put it. Yeah. Right. And the EAS program is supposed to be like a lifeline, to keep a community on the grid. And they've loved working with Cape Air because in a number of communities we've had growth like this, where they've started to come off the EAS program. And you can do incremental flying outside the program. So that's really the end of the presentation. We wanted to give you an update on the great ridership growth that we've seen here, really phenomenal growth rates, but still lots of room to go. We've got almost 10,000 seats in the market, and this is each way. Yet we're just at 5,000 enplanements. So next year I'm really excited to see us get fuller and fuller and fuller and continue to grow this market. The service that we've got with the small aircraft allows us to put low fares in the market, give people a convenient schedule, yet at the same time, over the last 20 years of Cape Air's existence, we've been able to invest in the accoutrements of airline service that a small community needs, the connections with the other airlines, the information systems, the IT systems that allow us to connect through checked bags with the other airlines and provide interline itineraries. What did I forget?
Do you want to talk about a little bit about CT and non-CT?
Thank you. We would love to put a city ticket office in Ogdensburg. We've been working, Jacqueline's been working tirelessly to come up with a deal for the iCenter or Center for Sight. Thank you. We have not been able to get traction and get that signed. We would like to do that. It would be great for the community to put a downtown business there, get the lights on, put some jobs in there, increase awareness of the airport for people who are in town. We continue to work on that, and it's been, it's taken much longer than we'd like, but please know that we continue to work on that. And if anybody has ideas on what we can do differently, we welcome them.
I got a comment to make. It's really relative to what our strategic plan to do with the airport, and you really hit on it really big, is the fact that the new planes, these aging planes are all going out, and the new planes coming in, our runway is not at the capability factor where it needs to be, and we need to extend our runway. So part of our plan that we're working on is to extend our runway, you know, to 6,000 feet. 56 we thought was a good number, now we realize 6,000 is the number. So you really tell the future of where we need to go, and you know, and that really tells us exactly what's going to happen there. The other thing I want to know is your new plane. What is your plans for that type of plane? You know, and you know, where is it going to go, or where are you going to try to go with it?
Sure.
And what's its capabilities? I didn't hear anything say anything about.
That's a great question, thank you, because you reminded me I forgot to say something. The new plane, we're specifying that it be a little bit faster, so that if we wanted to, we could very easily fly nonstop to some of the bigger hubs from a community like Ogdensburg. So we could do nonstop Boston, for example, which is just a little bit outside of our comfort range right now. Operationally, we'll do it fine, but it's just a little bit longer than we like to put people in an airplane without a lavatory. So we have built that into the new design.
What's your time frame for something like that to happen? You're a couple, 2-3 years away?
Sure. Well, we would love to sign an order last year. We're really working with the manufacturer. They're saying 2016 by the time we could start taking deliveries of this. So I want to properly set your expectations about the time.
I think a runway would be that long by then.
That's the other thing.
Huh?
We've asked for a better runway performance, so we need less runway now.
I know.
Well, one of the things about, we need to advertise that we can bring in so many passengers and go out so many passengers to get the Canadian business. When you look at 9 passengers, you know, I was out there yesterday, we were packed solid. My daughter couldn't get out of here last night, my granddaughter, she had to go out at noon. That plane was packed. It was, you know, so the business is there. And I've said this before, it's internet. We need to advertise like a period of time when we're gonna have capability of moving 18 passengers at 7 in the morning, moving 18 passengers in the evening. We need to advertise that. That'll sell. It'll sell to the Canadians and it'll sell to us. So basically you brought in 2 planes, then you brought in 3 planes, but they're all 9 passengers.
Yep.
To grow beyond that is the area that I'd like to see us go to a bigger plane for more passengers. But one of the reasons you don't want to go there is because you don't want to do 2 pilots. If you got 9 passengers, you only require 1 passenger, 1 pilot. Is that true?
No, not necessarily. As you know, we already have the ATR-42s. We fly 2 of them today out in Micronesia. Our niche and what we've had success in growing the company over 23 years has been the high frequency service. If you upgauge the aircraft, you necessarily have to have lower frequency, or else you run the risk of saturating the market with seats. And EAS actually will not give you as many frequencies within the program with the larger airplane. When we took over this service from a Beech 1900, which has 19 seats and 2 pilots, they were only authorized 12 round trips per week. Mm-hmm. And so that makes the service less convenient, because then you don't have as many connections both ways. You got to be able to connect both ways, and that's one of the trade-offs. You get a bigger airplane and you have 2 pilots, no question. You just do. But as the numbers show, particularly versus the numbers from when we took over the service, more people are using the service now than with the bigger airplane. And I know it's paradoxical, but we've seen this time and time and time again as we've taken over really small community service. And it's why we stick with the smaller airplanes. Now, you asked about multiple sections. We do that on a regular basis in our unsubsidized markets. That's just the business that we do. And I should probably also note, the vast majority of the flying that Cape Air does is outside the EAS program. We are not just a subsidized airline. This is just a little piece of what we do. We've been able to leverage the infrastructure we've built over 20 years to benefit smaller communities now. So in Nantucket, for example, one place where we do a lot of extra sections, that's exactly how it works. The first flight will fill up and we'll see it 3 weeks in advance, it's full. We'll add an extra section to it. But the pricing is such that the incremental airplane is paid for by the seats that sell on it. With the fare structure that we've got here in Ogdensburg, when we add an extra section, the EAS program will not pay for it at all. And at $52 net average fares, which is literally what we're getting so far, even if you sold every single seat on the flight, it wouldn't pay for the operating costs. And remember, you got to sell all seats both ways because we got to get the airplane up here in order to take the people down. So it would be very expensive just to reposition that airplane up. What we've done in Rutland and Saranac during the peak seasons to increase ridership, really, and because the planes were getting full, was we just published a fourth frequency, and it might be, if we had a 4-hour gap in the afternoon, we'd probably plug it in right in the middle. What that does is it enhances the convenience of the schedule. And you build a virtuous cycle where it's just all of a sudden people have so many more options that they're just delighted with the service and they keep using it time and time again.
Now, to connect with JetBlue and United, is that just through Boston? Can I go to Albany and get on the?
Well, they don't serve, JetBlue doesn't serve Albany, but
Okay.
they do, United does, of course. And we have interline ticket and baggage agreements with all the major carriers at Albany with the obvious exception of Southwest, because their policy is they don't connect with anyone.
So we could connect out of here, go through United, and get the tickets and the air, everything.
Yes, sir.
To go JetBlue, you gotta go to Boston.
Yes, sir.
Andrew, a quick follow-up question on one of the points. I just want to make sure I translate it and I heard what I just think I heard. Onto the multiple sections, in other words, adding another plane. There is a disincentive there for Cape Air to add another plane in the morning, for example, and you would instead have the passenger go out at noon as opposed to adding another section or another plane in the morning because the Essential Air Service Program wouldn't pay for that.
Well,
and you'd have a different rate structure associated with that second plane.
Sure.
Is that,
We
am I hearing that correctly?
yes, that's
Okay.
basically right. But here's the thing. If you really wanted 18 seats in the morning, we could put 2 planes here. It just means you'd only get one other flight for the rest of the day. Because the EAS program will only give you 2. They don't care when they are. They really don't. They want the community to decide. And one of the nice things about working with a small airline is you've got the deciders in the room. If you guys tell us that you'd like to have 2 flights in the morning, guess what? Okay, we can do that. I wouldn't advise it because it'll ruin the connectivity for the rest of the day, but we can do that.
Thank you.
What would trigger the additional flight? What would trigger you to decide that you wanted that? I understand that you would want it full or increase enough all day to make it pay for it. Okay, so what's the trigger?
When we start getting really full, and you guys are on a great track record for that, it's also conversations like this, and it's relationship building. Where we're on the phone on a regular basis. You have anecdotes like your daughter who was trying to get on a flight, and you say, look, I tried to do that 2 or 3 times now. How are we doing on enplanements? And we go and look at it, and we say, look, we're 60, 65, 70% full in June, July, and August. Cape Air has and will continue to add extra flights over that way. I mean, look, we're an airline. We'd be crazy not to. We make money when we do this, right? Who doesn't do, when you're doing something profitable, you do more of it, right?
Right. Good, thank you.
Well, that was exactly what I'm trying to say, is it'd be advertised for it. And we could get more passengers to use this airlines. I don't want to cut down on our flights, but I also want to be able to have more passengers with our system. The way this system is working, if you go by the calculation, you just told me we can't hit 10,000 earlier.
Yep, no, that's...
If we stick strictly with the 3 flights, 27 passengers a day, we're not going to hit the 10,000 mark.
Yep. I think it is very important that we all be aligned on the mission. The mission that we were hired by 4 years ago when Wade interviewed us was to come provide reliable air service and get it back on its feet. There were 6 months without any air service here whatsoever because the previous carrier with bigger equipment failed. So we've got a pulse now, let's put it that way. And so now we can work on the sort of higher life forms. It takes a long time to build up service. But the mission we've got right now, which is getting the breathing going and a pulse, we've got that. And if we want to adjust mission, that's something where we can move our sights on. And it sounds like, and I've heard that and was expecting that conversation coming in here. I think that's an awesome goal. We've participated in that goal with a number of other communities, as I mentioned, Quincy and Marion. And by golly, this year we're going to get those communities to 10,000. So we just need to all be hand in hand getting to that 10,000 number.
What would your relationship be? I'll just use Delta or somebody, whatever, connection, whatever. What would your relationship be with them if they come in twice a week?
We'd handle them.
Hmm?
We'd handle them. We'd love to have that.
You would have that.
You bet. You bet. We already handled JetBlue and I think Delta on Nantucket. We do it today.
So you have that type of relationship and communication, say, okay, this is what's going on. We can't do it. Can you come help? Can you come help us?
Absolutely. In fact, we handle Penn Air in Bar Harbor, another ES community.
So that may be the answer for us.
Sure. And one other thing you can do, in my experience, a community like this, if you really want to get the expressway to 10,000, what you should probably try and do is get 2 or 3 flights a week to a leisure destination. So bring in a 737 by Delta and have them shoot down to Florida from here and steal the Canadians from across the border and do that. We can handle a 737. We turn on the island of Rhoda, Cape Air employees turn a United Airlines 737-800. We're already trained, we've got all the manuals approved, we've been through the audit process. We know how to do that. So we can be your partners in that kind of air service development. We'd love to partner with that. It's good for our own business to have more people using the airport, because when you bring the Canadian family down here who's heretofore not even aware that there's an airport here, next time they go out, you can be sure they're going to check OGS, and then we'll get them on our own metal.
I just one quick question, because I know Fred's up for time. This is just your schedule. It says here the flight leaves Ogdensburg at 12:50 and arrives in Albany at 2:01. And then Messina leaves at 12:57 and gets there at 1:59. Why is that?
When we set the schedule, we go back into our computer program and take the average block time, which is gate push to gate arrival, and that's what we use to publish the schedule going forward. So it's based on actual historical operational data.
I just seen it, I had to ask.
Well, the
We
other
leave
thing,
early
too,
and we
you're
get
going
there
out on
late.
those military airlines.
Yeah, Falcon 21, right? Yep.
I asked my wife, she says, how would I know?
I think actually.
I do read your stuff.
Great. I think Wade actually just nailed it. It's, and I had forgotten that, but in Ogdensburg we have to go out around the Falcon 21 military operations area, so it's not a line flight.
You know, I'd just like to say, I know you're trying to get an office downtown or whatever to try to do better for the community and stuff. We do have office space available right here. So you just get pinched and you need to open up an office. You know, wouldn't be a bad idea with the Canadians that coming across the bridge to know that there's an office available. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks.
We won't hold you up.
Comment I would make, I really appreciate the board and the community that, you're providing the service for us, coming in and sharing what's going on, and, that's very important what you've done today, and we really appreciate what you've done. So, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you for making
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, let's continue on. That was a great presentation, update us there. And we're kind of going to jump our agenda here a little bit. Our Chief Financial Officer needs to go first. So, all right, we'll let you go ahead.
Thank you, Sam. main thing I'm working on is next year's budget. And you'll have the pleasure of seeing that at the next meeting. But that's coming along. It's coming along a little bit slowly, but it's coming along, and getting most of the assumptions put together now. And so, again, that's taking the bulk of my time right now. The 10-year capital plan that we talked about was submitted to the Division of Budget, and I received notice just a while ago that some changes are required. It was the first time of doing that 10-year look and so on. There's a few things that I've got to provide them that wasn't the way exactly that they had expected it. This has been on before about the biometric clock, that we're only using that. When the time changed over the weekend, my assumption was that it was a web-based clock and that the time would change automatically. When I came in this morning, I noticed that it wasn't. I got a hold of Paychecks, and in a few minutes, it was. It somehow it needed an extra bump, but that was it is something when something like that's connected, like and your expectation is that it'll work, and it did as soon as they gave it a little shock treatment or whatever. Probably like the
Paddles.
Yeah, the paddles. Yeah. So we can go to the reports. The one on the top is the bridge traffic report. Autos were up nearly 11% in October from October last year. Trucks were up a little bit, so it averaged 10%. You got yours?
I don't.
I don't have them.
Well, it might not be a case that is different, it might be a case that I'm not smart enough to find it.
Started looking
This
at
stuff
yours.
is my home, let's just see.
There you go.
There we go. I do have it.
Okay.
Filled my in-flight mail.
Okay, so again, the autos are up 11. Overall, we're up 10% for October. Continues to be very strong. Autos up 9.7 for the year. Trucks just about flat for a total of 8.78% increase for the year. I believe that I budgeted 6%, so we're doing well. The next one is the financial report. And bridge tolls, again, show up there in the positive column, along with rental income and, of course, port operating income. Warehouse and storage is down just a little from the budget and down through, but we're up considerably for revenue from the budget.
Rich, let me stop you right there, because the
Yes.
port operating budget you put in last year,
Yes.
you will probably use that number again, the budget?
Yeah, we will budget according to the business that we expect, the salt business.
Yes,
We have a contract with Richardson for some grain.
Yeah.
We'll include that because that's a pay or take. If you don't take it, you still pay
Right.
for a certain, I think, 6,000 tons. If they don't bring any, they still pay for 6,000 tons. So we will not budget for a wind project unless we have a
No.
contract.
Right. Well.
It'll be very similar to the
Because
5-7.
we're ready to adjust it, right?
Yeah, we're ready to adjust at any moment, yeah.
Okay,
But I will budget on what we know.
okay.
The airport operating income is strong, and that's, we'll see in a minute why that is, along with the increase in passengers. On the expense side, salaries and wages are way up, and we know why that is. That's ILA. Along with benefits, insurance, again, some of that is because of the extra insurance that we paid. We've paid now for we've had the bridge inspection now, so that's not a big, that's been a big plus for us, and it isn't now because we had the inspection. Maintenance is high, much higher than budgeted, but 208 of that 197 was wind turbine related, and that maintenance being welding supplies and things like that. And some rental equipment and things like that on that one.
When we go back to interest expense, there's a huge change there.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit for me? What happened there what changed?
We are paying for the things that we expected. I don't know.
Well, part of that is we're not accessing that $5 million line of credit.
That's right, that's right. $5 million line of credit, we had anticipated some use of that, so that would be
We
something.
had to cover, okay.
Right. No, we have it, but we haven't used it.
Haven't used it.
Remember,
Yes, I
in
do
fact, we
remember.
extended
Okay.
it for the port access road and so on.
Okay.
But that was for the bridge project, but we
Okay.
extended it and haven't used it. And able to manage the cash around needing it.
Okay, so it's saved $100.
Yeah, save some money there.
Good job.
What's falling into other income? That's a pretty big number compared to what was budgeted.
Yeah, other income, one of the big ones there was the sale of that locomotive after we cut it up.
Okay,
The other railroad income is in there. I believe that there was some things from the wind turbine project, like the water that we sold. But there's been a multitude of things. But it seems like there's something else that I'm not telling you about, but it's,
But again, you would only budget the same way again. You wouldn't-
right, yes. Yeah, we haven't got
You
another
wouldn't budget
locomotive to cut it.
$130,000 coming again that way, it just happened to
Right.
be
Yes.
that particular time, okay.
But I think, to your point, Don, that is a large enough number. Let's put a schedule with it and we'll get it out to the board.
Okay, okay. we'll do
well,
that.
this year in particular, it really jumped over expectations, so.
Yes,
But the locomotive, I'd forgotten about that.
yeah.
That's a pretty good piece.
Right. Okay, I'll get you a schedule of what makes up the 133.
Thank you.
Then last but not least is the airport report. Now, as you heard Andrew say, Patrick Edwards is away. I have been in touch with him by email, and he said he'll get me the airport report for October as soon as he gets back. But that didn't do us any good for today's meeting, so that's why October's numbers are not there. But you will notice that fuel sales is up tremendously. 3 times the fuel sales of last October. And a lot of that's around the helicopter, that medical helicopter. They have not got their fuel ready yet in Potsdam, so they're fueling up here. And that's jet. They use Jet A. That's a big part of it. Also, we've had, it seemed like an awful lot of jets from the homecoming weekends at St. Lawrence and Clarkson. And I think one of those jets took 800 gallons. So that's a big factor too.
These personal planes?
Yes.
John, you just don't, you don't have one, John?
I guess they can afford those tuition bills at St. Lawrence.
That's the 1%.
Wonder why tuition's $45.
Fred, you probably don't have the numbers off the top of your head, but out of those numbers, do we know, obviously you do know, the amount of fuel that Cape Air buys here?
Yes, we do. I haven't got it off the top of my head, but we do know exactly what Cape Air buys. But again, you know, that number is a combined number, and when I put that together, I was just adding up all the gallons and,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I know we discussed in facilities meetings and other type of meetings about the possibility of a tanker leasing, buying, whatever we want to be. And actually talking with Andrew a little bit before we had our meeting, and he said they would buy all their fuel here.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure how we enhance that to put that in motion, but the question would be is to invest in a fuel tanker for just that fuel. Would it be worthwhile to do it or whatever? So those numbers really would have to be,
We have talked about that, and I did a bit of an analysis on that, not a complex analysis, but I think we can rent a
Lease one.
we can lease one for $1,600 a month.
$1,600.
So $1,600 a month would mean that we would have to sell about an additional 1,300 gallons at our market. So 1,300 gallons a month. You know, you fuel up a couple of 800-gallon jets and you got it made. But I don't know whether we would fuel up more of them or not. But if Cape Air took more, they use 100 low lead. And they usually, when we do put it in, it's not in those kind of quantities. They don't, you know, their planes don't take a lot of they don't take a lot of fuel. I don't know whether it would add up to 1,300 or not, but.
Well, in the business model, I mean, you know, we're redesigning our website, you know, to say in our website, now all of a sudden the capability of, you know,
Right.
fueling this particular way. Now, all of a sudden, somebody goes on there, you know, pulls up the website and says, wait a minute, Ogdensburg, you can get a tanker truck, will fill you up. No, it's there. I mean, it's just no. If you're losing money, even your advertising, it's not a good way to go, but.
Right. That's
You
what
know,
it
Wade
would
and I go
require.
back and forth to say, if we got it, okay,
Mhm.
and then maybe buying one later on, whatever. I think the Wade and I were talking earlier, I mean, there are all sorts of prices for tanker trucks out there that, you know, it doesn't have to drive very far.
Right.
All it needs to be able to drive and pick the fuel up and drive to the plane and, you know, whatever. I mean, I saw one from 1980. Somebody said, what kind of a truck would be 1980? But you couldn't tell the truck was a 1980 truck for $12,000, $13,000. Now, and then I saw one for $45,000, $46,000. You say, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of outlay of money that, you know, if you don't do it that way. You know, but I think really, you know, part of, you know, facilities chair, whatever, you know, time to really look at that and see exactly, I appreciate that you looked at the lease numbers.
It appears
too.
about 1,300 gallons additional sales a month would be the break even.
Well, the thing is, I think there's a little more to it than just that. I think we've got to find out what it would just take to train our people to operate it and when we could operate it, all the things that come into it, all the safety issues that have to come into
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of responsibility when you go with a fuel truck versus your standard tanks that you've got in place. So there's a lot of things you'd have to look at. I think that you better really research it. To have it right down, it's not just having a fuel truck, it's how you're gonna man it, when you're gonna man it, how you're gonna train that person, you're gonna have to hire a person to do it, it's another added position, it's just, you know, just not having a fuel truck. You know, it's a lot of stuff that's gonna come into
Yeah,
it.
that was not including any other expenses other than.
1,300 gallons just ain't gonna cut.
1,600. Right.
You gotta come up with the right truck, and it's gotta be a truck that passes inspection. There's a lot of things that come into this, a lot of safety issues that come into this, you know what I mean?
Well,
I think, you
if
know,
Saranac
something-
Lake looked at it, Fred, and they did it. I'm not
Well,
saying.
I don't
you
know
we're
what
gonna put the
Saranac Lake,
same-
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we as a
Oh, I know
public
that,
authority,
yeah.
we've gotta make sure we plug it all in
Yeah.
and just research it. It's not just to have a fuel truck out there.
Well, certainly, we just, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we just got this information in. We will bring it before the facilities committee for consideration, and we'll go from there.
I'm not against it, but I'm just trying to say, there's a lot to it.
And we should look into Saranac Lake and what it has cost them other than the truck itself, you know, for additional expense. Whether there's any additional insurance or maybe less because you haven't got the fuel in tanks, I don't know. So we can look into all that and do a detailed analysis, but just, you know, looking at it quickly, to pay for the fuel truck at that lease rate, it's about 1,300 gallons.
I would say, is it worth the headache?
Yeah.
No, really, is it worth the
Of
headache?
Jet A, that's the other.
No, that would be it either. I combined
that's
the
of
two.
either.
Yeah,
Okay.
I combined the two.
Yeah, but the tanker that we talked about only can.
Only Jet A?
You can only do one or the other.
Planes are
Yeah.
much smaller with the 100 low lead,
Yeah.
so the
Okay.
Jet A is what you're after
Okay.
for fuel.
Yeah. Okay, we're looking.
Any
Go
other
ahead, Fred, I'm
questions?
sorry, no,
Any other questions about it? Anything? So I will excuse myself and go over and see if I can do anything about your property tax.
Thank you, Fred.
You're below 20%, so you're in the right track.
Yeah, we're heading in the right direction.
Fred, I want to, before you go,
Yeah.
and actually, this is going to jump into John's report, whatever it want to be, and you and I briefly had a little discussion, and it has to do with the park, Carmen's Park, whatever. And one of the things that even Fred and I had discussion also is when all these contracts that we have in the open space, how does that really work, and you know, how people, because we never have the perfect number for somebody's coming in, whatever. Do some people get the more than they really pay for, size-wise sometimes? I know we can't be accurate. I mean, I'm not sure that's a public session you want to discuss openly, whatever, and those type
I
of
think
numbers.
we added a clause to this last contract.
The part that we can discuss openly is we never have the right space for exactly what
Yeah.
somebody needs.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit flexible in the rates. That's why you'll notice our rates don't ever match up 100%. Each rate is reflective of individual negotiations. So even in the same building, you'll have a multitude of different rates.
Okay.
They'll vary somewhat, but they won't vary by more than $1, $1.25, depending on the space. Some of the ones you'll look at tonight, for example, are small little office spaces, 120 square feet, for example. That rate is slightly different than if someone was taking 1,000 square feet versus 10,000 square feet. So there's a little bit of difference there. One of the things that we'll need to have discussion later on is we've made I guess I'm starting to stray into some executive session material, but I need to have the board take a look at a proposal that we have that takes all this new space into account and offers up a different pricing structure for those spaces, and that's something I'd like to get your feedback on.
Because one of the things that, if you start looking at the numbers, you got a building that's housing 4,000 or 3,000 square feet, and there's 28,000 square feet available, and you say, how did that get where you got another building that could have housed those, all right? And so now all of a sudden you have, now I'm not saying this is the right thing or wrong thing, but it to me is justifying emptying the building or keep the building open where it's heated per se, whatever. I mean, I guess that's what you do. I mean, does that make sense?
Well, there's not a situation, kind of, but there's not a situation where we would necessarily empty out one building and close it down. What we would do is optimize the zones, shut 2 zones way down, have the 3rd zone power who's in there, and try and find a tenant for the additional space.
Okay, now I'm just, I guess like my point would be, though, the next step is, we got if we had a whole vacant building, would that give us a different marketing strategy, having a whole complete building open by itself? Is that an asset, or?
Yeah, it probably would, but I think in some cases, if we needed that whole building and there was someone in a corner of it, that we could relocate them at that time, because when we relocate someone, it's at our expense. So if we were to relocate them just for the sake of having a big empty building, it might be penny wise, pound foolish.
And we do have, just to add to that thought, and we do have in the leases that have smaller space components, we do have the ability to relocate at our expense, should somebody come and need.
Sure.
So in other words, because one firm is located in 120 square feet and somebody knocks on the door and says, I need 3,000 square feet, and they're located smack dab in the middle of it, we have the ability to relocate them.
Okay. So we have flexibility in our marketing strategy to advertise, we have all this space and
Yes.
move it, whatever. I mean, I didn't want to tie your hands, but also want to know, you know, if that's.
And one of the things that I've noticed, from being, I'm an accountant and I see that kind of thing was, why in the world are we doing this one here and another one over here and another one over here? And sometimes it's the uniqueness of the building that serves that client better
ceiling
than
heights and
one of the
certain
other
things,
two.
we don't want to be, yeah.
Right.
Okay, I just want to throw that question out to whatever, and I know you're going to talk about more, so, okay. You can go.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred.
I'll have a cell phone with me if there's a question that needs answered.
Okay.
I'll see you.
See you later. I want you on the 11 o'clock news.
Okay.
Let me take a last look at you.
I know there would be murder and assassination.
Okay, back to, jumped out of order, I guess, Wade, it's your report now.
Well, a couple things I'd like to bring your attention to. First, in your orange folder, there is the draft bridge inspection executive summary. There's a couple things in there that please take a look at your leisure regarding the paint system, the structural steel, the grid deck, the main cable, and suspenders. We just received this report. The Majeski Masters, our engineer, will be up here in either December or January to go over the entire report in detail with the board in executive session, but I thought you'd find that interesting. That's why I put that in there. This This report's also going to help with our approach span rehabilitation project. Again, some of the photos in there are useful in terms of making a case for why we need funding on the approach span. No secret there, but that's something that we continue to work on.
I think photograph too ought to get someone's attention.
And there are some nice photos in there.
Yeah.
And again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Some of these pictures are hopefully worth $1 million.
I'm surprised the size of the turbine that sits up in the air, how big it is compared to somebody standing there as a 6-foot person. It looks like it's, I don't know, 30, 40 feet long, probably 30 feet. Wow, it's amazing.
Some of the other interesting things during the period, Steve and I participated in meetings conducted by MTO, Ministry of Transportation. That's the equivalent of Ontario DOT. They're conducting a commercial vehicle survey in the Port of Prescott, and this information will be shared with us, but a couple things here I'll pass around. The colors that you see in the thickness, think of these as like your arteries. You're looking at a circulatory system. The bigger, thicker areas are where traffic is moving between, and it's colored for different states, like New York in this case is blue, Vermont is gold, moving from Quebec to Ontario is red. Same type thing, you can see the growth on the corridor on 401, which they have already done. Again, you can see the thick area there. Again, don't get hung up too much on the colors. The wider the line, the more important the artery for all intents and purposes. I'll pass this around. There's a couple of photos in here, in addition to a sample of the survey itself. So I'll pass that around so you can take a look at that. And once complete, we will receive a copy of the results. Mr. Chairman, I'll pass it around. A couple other things I've been working on during the period. The toll collector uniform, we needed to revise that to present a professional image to the public. I'm pretty pleased to report we've done that. We had some assistance from the Thruway Authority in that regard. We've had the discussion with the union. The union's agreeable, and we're good to go there. So we're looking at the January implementation.
What does that include?
That updates the dress code to basically say that you're going to wear something that has an OBPA logo on it. Your name is going to be clearly identified at all times, and presents a uniform appearance to the public. Let's see what else I want to put out here. As was mentioned earlier, the vice chair and myself went to the North Country Airport Alliance joint meeting held in Saranac Lake. That was definitely worth the time as we rewrite our airport security plan. The chair and I held a joint meeting with city officials, promoting opportunities to work together. I have developed a specification sheet promoting the unique environmental test chamber that's over in Building 11. This is a highly specialized piece of equipment that's over there. It's worth about $150,000. And we're looking at this piece of equipment to say, okay, how do we use this? How do we package this with 2,000 or 3,000 square feet of space to create jobs? This environmental test chamber, to give you an idea, can go from about 120 degrees down to 30 below within about, Steve's about 6 minutes, something like that. It's a highly unique piece of equipment, and we're the owners of it. We need to figure out what we can do with it. The capital planning process is substantially complete. Again, the state's requiring that we do that first before the budgeting. We need to go back and revisit that, and we'll present the results of that at the December workshop. The appraisals are in on the authority property, and the other item that we've discussed previously in the executive session, and I will present the results of that in the executive session. There is a meeting with outside counsel here. It's an important meeting, November 16th. from 1 to 3 p.m. I'd like to invite all the board for that meeting, and that is with outside counsel on a topic that we will pick up in executive session. And
You don't have a time for that yet, do you?
yes, 1 to 3.
1 to 3?
That'll be executive session,
That will be executive session, yes.
so we can let the folks know out there, and if anything comes out of that, then we'll report it.
And as I mentioned, we're completing the budgeting process and the planning process for next year, and should have that done within the next couple of weeks. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Where did we get that equipment, that environmental?
It was installed by a former tenant,
Oh.
and I guess we always knew it was there, but when we started looking at the specifications of it, we realized that we had something that was pretty special.
They just left it?
Yes.
Wow.
Don't tell them.
But
And to the right person, this thing means everything, and you could open a new type of business based upon it. But the trick is, we need to find that person or agency. We have reached out to the universities, we have reached out to the, several IDAs, and as well put out a special notice to our elected officials saying, hey, we've got this, can you help us?
did you get any bites as a result of that?
We've got some initial interest, nothing that is going to translate into a lease agreement at this point. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to briefly go through John's report? a little bit?
Certainly, I'll pinch hit for John. Again, he apologizes, he broke his hand and is not here today
Tell
to
you, you can't talk.
present his report. You can see it over on page 5. We've been working on a lot of interesting things, particularly in the port development and promotion section. We're talking about a 2013 heavy lift cargo opportunity. Nothing is final yet. I don't want to get any undue hopes out there, but the discussion still continues. In addition, on the Alcoa side of things, their board of directors will be deciding on March 31st whether or not to undertake a project that could result in potential cargo for us. We've had several conversations with Canadian grain companies that are interested in setting up a depot here similar to what we have with Richardson Grain. We were featured in St. Lawrence Seaway Review regarding the wind turbine project, and we'll get you a copy of that article. I noticed that was not in the board read file, but we will get you a copy of that. You'll notice we have a new type of salt that's being stored indoors. You can see it at the port. It's a clear lane salt, and it is the green salt. Is that correct, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
How they can clearly identify it when you see it at the port. There's been some discussion with an Ontario firm and the railroad interested in importing fertilizer. The Montreal Gazette ad started running on October 15th. We should have feedback on that shortly. We have several of our sites and buildings are now updated on various websites around the county. We have several new clients that are taking smaller amounts of space, but again, that's a good win for us. Even though they're small spaces, hopefully they will continue to grow in the industrial park and need more space. We'll continue to work with them on that. We had a successful exporters event in Ogdensburg that was held in conjunction with the embassy in St. Lawrence County IDA. Several follow-up meetings have been held. I think everybody's familiar with the marketing committee meeting and the result of the Greek yogurt prospectus. John's also attended the Ottawa American Chamber of Commerce breakfast in Ottawa for the Canadian ambassador to the U.S. spoke at that meeting, and he did meet with several prospects who attended that event. The highlight of things coming up is the direct mail marketing campaign that will be occurring in the Montreal market shortly. And on page 7 of your packet, you'll see the building occupancy report. That is for the Commerce Park. And again, there's a separate handout that was with the information that Fred had earlier that shows the Port of Ogdensburg building as well.
What have we done in the last year? Obviously, we recovered some.
Well, our occupancy rate has gone from about, vacancy rate has gone from about 38% down to about 36% overall. And we haven't had a lot of folks knocking on our door saying we need a large amount of space, but we are performing a lot of outreach in finding firms that are needing the equivalent of like 1 or 2 offices for space. That area continues to grow, and that's one of the things that we'll need to have the discussion on in executive session regarding the small business incubator and how we want to handle this going forward. Because one of the problems that we have had in the past is when we have a building and we start renting out small individual offices, we chop up and carve up a building, and then all of a sudden you turn on the light switch here and it operates a light at the far end of the building, and it's a nightmare scenario. So what we did is we got together and put our thoughts together and said, okay, on building 1, we have a lot of interest in there for a small business incubator. We have money in our budget to put up some walls and make some modifications. What kind of smart growth can we have in that building? And we've done that, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about tonight, along with potential rates in those individual zones or areas of the building.
Mr. Davis, just, is this the copy of the Seaway Trade? Because it has a feature article.
That's it.
Oh, I didn't realize it had made it in there.
Just
Yes.
so that everyone knows.
Yes, that is the Great Lakes Seaway Review article.
Any more questions, Wade, in regards to John's report? Okay, Steve, we appreciate your report.
Yeah, over the past month, in the industrial park, our staff has done some requested improvements for tenant in building 3. At the border station, we annually, as part of our contract, as landlord, we clean the Bacchus building, which is the truck inspection building. We clean that quarterly, so that took place last week. On the bridge, as Wade mentioned, the digital message board will be going up tomorrow, and probably, if all things going well, it'll be up and running tomorrow night, we hope. Wade also mentioned that he and I attended the MTO meeting on truck traffic. The bridge maintenance crew is wrapping up this week, but most all the field work has been completed that we could take care of this season. That was completed last week. We still got more to do, but we'll plan for that for next spring. So that's wrapped up.
Steve, how much of that work should we be doing this winter in some of the areas that seems to be getting behind? It just seems to be getting behind in this report. How much of that work should maybe we do this winter with our crew?
Well, we hadn't, basically what we did was out of those areas that needed, we had, after the inspection, we had Majeski prioritize things, and we got right on those things. We're beyond where they said we needed to be. Some of those can wait till next year on that. But getting to your question, that's always a question: how much resources and manpower do you want to put into it? There's a point to which, unless you gear up with more equipment and manpower, we'll never get ahead of it, you know. And I think that's what they asked after is there stuff we could do? Possibly a lot of prep work.
We have a small crew, right? What do you got,
Yes,
6 people?
Well, we're down to 2 left over now. Right now, I've got 2 still here. But I hadn't planned on, just with my budget, we budget them for like the 1st or 2nd week of November, and then we lay everybody off. So what we do is we plan our work after the inspection to take care of all those things that need to be prioritized, so that, everything's safe out there. So I feel comfortable with where we left off, but at the same time, come springtime, we'll have a lot to do that we need to, stay on. We may have to man up in the springtime, a couple extra people just to stay on top of, or just to be even for next year. But I haven't, honestly, I haven't planned on.
Well, some of the things that I see in some of the reports, I think that we want to, when we put this budget together, is exactly what you said. We may have to bring this crew up, 4 or 5, maybe 6 people more.
Correct.
We gotta get caught up here on some of this stuff. There's some of this I'm just looking at, glancing at it, and of course I haven't been on the site. Maybe I should go out there and look at it. But there's some of it we need to get some more power in.
Right.
Manpower.
Yeah, and based on the manpower we have, my overriding thing is we ask the engineers what absolutely has to be done, and we know right after the inspection where we are, and basically we ask them to prioritize that, and I think we've hit that mark, and I'm satisfied with that. As always, yeah, it would be nice if you could go year round and do a lot of that prep work, but I haven't budgeted or planned for that, though. That's the only thing. But
And
I think we need the budget for it.
okay.
I think we need to pump it up and get this maintenance work going, and if we have to bring them back in a month or 2 months early, get this done. I mean, we need to, we've been working,
Yeah.
that crew's been cut back.
Yeah, one person. Well, since when we originally started, yeah, it's kind of been back and forth with that, but I think from when we originally started,
I don't know what the number we had, but
think it
when
was-
we originally put that.
it was
crew
4
together-
guys plus 2 of ours, but with the staff, we're down to 1 of our personnel.